This is Short Hammer. It is the 20th of September, 2020, and this is Trading Zones. Now, if you remember last week, we were calling out some levels to watch for, and we didn't exactly advance above that 34.24 area. So, what happened is that just turbulence came into the market and we dropped, and that's all right because we have our levels. So where we are now, we bounced off the 32.86 area. And when you look to the left, you see a small bit of candle structure here. Here too, a little bit of candle structure. So you can see what we want to see is, for me, I want to see if we push back up around this 33.29.50 area. And what happens if we get above that? Do we have strength into the 33.56.50, strength into 33.83.50, strength back into the 34.24 area? If not, if we cannot regain this 33.29.50, then I'll wait to see if the buyers step in around 32.86.25. And if they do not, then I'm watching for 32.59, 32.21, then 31.80. That's what I'll be watching for if we don't see buyers step in and hold us this week above this 32.86.25 area. So in this in-between middle area, I'm just going to watch. When we get to these lines, that's when I'm interested. I want to see what's going to happen. Now, if I'm taking a scalp, like a few bucks on this, then yeah, I might play utilizing at least this pivot strategy, these in-between areas on the intraday on the 10-minute time frame. But on this 4-hour, when I'm looking at the overall trend and what I expect, I would rather us either be put down through the 32.86 and I sort of jump in long here, waiting for a retrace and exiting or scaling out on the way up, or getting short right around this 33.29 if I see rejection and fading this to the downside. That's how I would play this. And if we push through the 33.29 and we see bullish candlestick structure here, then watch for the level to the 33.56 and be long against this 33.29.50 area up into the 33.56. So we'll see how the week shakes out. There is a little bit of weakness, but there's just a lot of information with the election looming. There's a lot of information that's just flying all over the place. So don't be too heavily invested in being a bull or being a bear. Just play the setups that the chart gives you. And for me, I just watch the technicals and I play off these levels. Okay, to the Russ, we did pull back off the 1560, of course, and we saw buyers step in right down around those 1516s, and we'll see how this shakes out this week. If we see more selling, that'll drive us below those 1516s, and we see weakness down to the 1453 area. This is a lot of candle structure here, so we'll see how that holds up. If we advance back above the 1560 and we're bullish, I would look for a raise right into this area here on the 1583s. Look at these tops. And I mean these previous ones here where there's been a little bit of resistance to further advancement. That's what I would be watching for if we buy back above 1560 and if we're bullish. Watch the last pop. We rejected at 1570, so watch for that. So if you see this above the 1560 and we're advancing, I would be scaling out as we get near here, just because the last time we were up in that area, that's where the selling took place and the buyers were no longer interested. Yes, it could be news related, but the chart, if you remember, what's that movie? was watching it with my kids. Frozen 2. Water has memory. Okay, well, the chart has memory. So at places where you've rejected it before, or places where buyers have stepped in before, expect them to do the same thing in the future, at least to some capacity. Maybe not as heavily, but always look for these areas where you've seen the chart reverse. And hey, it may happen again. History tends to repeat itself. Okay, let's see. So let's keep it moving here. Take a peek at Amazon. Okay. So Amazon, we rejected up in there, this 3193 area. So where are we now? We're down around this 2950. So what am I watching for? Okay, look to the left. Let me zoom this in a little bit. So I'll be watching this area here. Look, last time we rejected right around this 3344 area on this pre-market pop. We dropped down and the buyer stepped in around this 2945 area, right? We saw a little bit of leak below, but look at these, boom, 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 trying to find support here. No advancement below this level. Buyers pushed us back up to 3268, right about here. Then we see that as we get near this area, actually even here, you see the buyers don't see or don't feel as if there's much value to the upside. So they're selling. Sellers stepping in, drive us back down. This time we push below that area to the 2887. Buyer step in, pushes back above. Look at this. Just finding purchase, finding support, pushing back up, pushing back up. It's trying. And then once you see the break, pull back, ride. Look at those rejection to the downside, telling you that, hey, it's probably more momentum to the upside. So you're watching this chart, right? Down, down. And then here we are again, back to the 2950. You see the lower wicks pushing back up. So when you look to the left here, right, if you're watching Amazon, all these lower wicks on the 4 hours showing you that in this area, this 2887 by 2950 below in this area, so far the buyers have stepped in. Here, July, so 16th of July, 24th of July. Now it is September, and we'll see if this holds, right? So if you begin to see above this 2950 buyer stepping in bullish candlestick formations, then we're watching 3020, then 3068, then seeing if we get to 3193. If we begin to fail here and sell, and you see candles closing below here on the 4 hour, then you definitely want to watch to see for advancement down to 2887, then potentially down to 2781, and then maybe even lower. But that's what I would be watching for on Amazon. And what date is this? That's a ways off for those earnings. But what you also, maybe a little bit premature here. So if earnings are the 22nd of October, right? This may be the dip 30 days or so before, prior to earnings, that you may want to get in on. So if you're trading Amazon, I'm not saying to buy Amazon here. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is that headed into earnings, when you have earnings and you're going to have, when you have earnings here, this could be interesting because this is a nice dip. prior to earnings. So not sure if this will be something that people are getting into, expecting there to be a run up into earnings. Usually 30 days prior, 45 days prior, people look for a strong dip to jump in on, and they look to ride that through to earnings. I actually may do a vertical spread on this, a nice wide one headed into earnings. But people usually they'll play options on this, and the expectation is that headed into earnings, there's an increase in um, volatility and also an increase in the underlying that pushes this back up headed into earnings, and people will jump out prior to earnings and lock in some of that juicy IV, and that just that run up into earnings. So we'll see how low this dips, and when we begin to see the curve or the green candles on the 4 hour, and for this thing to reverse, and people may be riding this bad boy back up headed into earnings, but we'll see. But for me, I usually just play line to line, and the earnings play is a different play than my typical scalp or short swing, 1 or 2 day swing or 3 day swing that I'll take off of a specific technical level that you'll see what these lines are. These supply and demand lines. Hopefully, I didn't get too much in the weeds on this Amazon, but that's what I would be looking for on Amazon, personally. Next up is Netflix, and so you always want to zoom out, see the structure, and we have our little zone here. So if you're looking at this structure, let's see, rejected here. So we're here. So you want to see if we stay above this 457 area. And if we do not, then watch for 447 to 440 for buyers to step in. If we advance back above this 475, then I'll be keeping my eye on the 485 to 490 area. So I'll just watch the levels on this. So if we cannot advance back above this 475, then I'll be watching for a retrace down to the 457, then potentially the 447 by 440, where I'll expect buyers to potentially step in. If we fade below that, then you can see this area here. Look at these wicks. This 414 area that we might go to. But let's see. This did kind of advance below here. This 464, 467 here. Yeah, we are kind of below this. We didn't see strong buying. So we'll see. This may be a back test of the 475 and a rollover down into the 457. So I'll be watching Netflix earnings 20th of October. Yeah, so all this it's kind of funky because you have an election upcoming, and there's just so much news being kicked around right now. So this is going to be interesting, but watch your levels. So watch the 475, see if we advance above that. If we do, then watch for the 485 and 489 area. If we don't get above 475 and we drop and you see bearish candlestick formations and the market's a little bit heavy, then I'll be watching for the 457 up next. So Netflix is interesting, but there are people that may be looking at this as a potential dip buy headed into earnings. Potential. I'm not saying I'm one of them. I'm just saying just keep an eye on it, because for me, I need to see a strong reversal and momentum behind that. I'm not just going to buy something because it pulls back at all. So NVIDIA, we did see rejections right here around this 531. Zoom in. and we are holding above this 475. For me, this is a mid zone. I would not be jumping in here. I would like to see a pushback into the 514.80s to see if we get above. And if we do and we hold, and I see a little bit of bullish candlestick formation on the intraday, I'll ride this up into the 531s. Here, I want to see a drop in the 475. Wait to see if the buyers step in. If they do not, we fade below. Then I could ride this down to the 460 area. So we'll see how this plays out. Looking at the candlestick structure, it looks like we may be holding above this 475 on NVIDIA. We have to see how this shakes out. But if we hold above this, then it looks to be more of the same. We saw a drop here, pull back up. For me, if we pull back up, I would be watching initially this area here around 502 to see if we could advance above that with some strength. And then we run to the 514s. But if we can't on this little bounce advance above that, then I believe we're going to go back down and push down into the 475s. So we'll be watching for that on NVIDIA. We'll see how that goes. Next up is Microsoft. Actually, hold on. I think that's my son. Let me see what's going on. Let me pause. Pardon me. That was my son. Okay. Now he is back to bed. So, watching Microsoft, what we want to see is, let's see, dip below 201. Okay. And here. So it makes sense that we bounce there. We want to watch to see if we advance above the 202, if buyers step in and run us into the 208. If not, we want to see if we reject the 202, and then if we sell back down to the 195 and potentially lower. I like this area here. Let me zoom in and drag this. I like how this area looks, and maybe it doesn't look the same. Here's the area too. This 187. I like this 180, this 187 area as an area to retrace to, just based on candle structure. Is that my son back up again? Oh, come on, buddy. Come on over. Looks like you're joining this week's video. Come here. Bring it in. Hop on up. Sit right here. Okay. So my son has joined us. So I would be watching that 187-ish area. So we'll see if that even happens. That may be more of a hopeful dip, a long shot, because you see candle structure here and here around that 195 area. That seems, we've already found a little bit of a bounce in buying there. So we'll see what happens. But if we don't regain this 202 and we roll back down through this 195, I'll be short into the 187s. That just looks like an area that we can naturally come to rest. And I'm not saying that I would buy in this area for a retrace. I'm just saying that I think that we may extend to that area if the selling continues and the weakness continues. But we've already seen a slight rejection to the downside here around the 195. Not sure if that's just short coverings, but we'll see how this works out. And if this is potentially, like I said, we're about 30 days out prior to earnings. So this is all pretty interesting, but we'll see how this goes. But I'll be playing off the 202. And if we can't regain and we sell down to the 195, if I don't see strong buyers pushing us back up, then I'll be fading us down to the 187s. Facebook is up next. So we are right below this 254 area. If we can't regain that, if we do regain that, first of all, then we should see buying up into the 261 Then above that, we'll see the 264. If we stay below this 254 area, then I'll be watching the 247s to see if buyers step in. If not, then down into the 240s. If I'm looking at this, all through here, you see candle structure. So anywhere in here, you know, you can see there's a potential for buyers like here around this 240 area, 240.92, 241-ish. Buyers may step in, even right around this 247. Buyers could step in all around here. So there's no surprise that we reversed around here, because you just see all these lower wicks and this push off here before this pop, multiple days just in this area, and then we popped off of here. So we'll see, but watch and see if we advance above 254. If not, watch for the 247s, then the 240s. We'll see how this works out, but just play it point to point. I would not get in here. If we regain the 254s and I see bullish candlestick formations to the upside on the intraday, I'll be riding this into the 260, 261 area. So we'll see how that goes. On to CI. Now, the president did announce I think there was some legislation that he was doing around the pricing of drugs or pharmaceuticals. So we'll see. But looking at this, we are below this 173 area. Next up is 163. If you pull out on, let me see. Okay, there we go on the chart. A little bit choppy. So you see so we were finding support here below, pop back over 173, back up into the 181s numerous times. So here we back tested this area, rejected, and we're selling. So this technically should drop down into the 163 area, maybe even lower into the 157s. But I'll be watching this to see if we stay weak. I like this rejection that we saw of the 173, and then lower lows and lower high wave, then maybe a lower low wave into the 163 area on CI. So I'll be keeping an eye on this, and I may look for a slight pop up here to get short against this 173 area, but this is not a bad setup here to ride down to the 163 unless something seriously changes. This is a mid area where I usually don't like to jump in on a trade, but I do like that we rejected this area here, this 171 by 173-ish. I like that we rejected that. I like that the candle rejected that. So we'll see if we make a lower low here into the 163s, and maybe even lower into the 157s if we remain weak. CMG, we are above this 1187, also the 200 here. We see candle structure here and here at that 1187 area. If we continue to dip, we'll see if the buyers step in. If not, and we go below the 1187s, then I'll be watching for the 1133s next. If buyers step in, I'll look to see if we can get a bounce back into this 1209, and then if we get above that, then right into the 1239.59 area on CMG. We'll see. But if we drop down here into the 1133s, if we see weakness and we go below, if buyers don't step in, then I'll definitely be watching to see if we can get into the 1070s. Just looking at the candle structure here. Dollar Tree, down in this zone that we mentioned last week, this 86.74 by 89.42. If we zoom out, what happened the last times we were here, the interactions below, we saw some rejection. When you're above, you see a little bit of buying. So let's see if we see a little bit of buying out of this area. If not, and we get below these 86, 86 70s, then look for selling and watch the 84 15s to the 79 47s. So we'll see what happens here. But usually this area does provide a little bit of demand. And so we'll see if we see some buying out of this area up into the 89.42, then potentially the 91.40s. And if we go to the 94s, we'll see how this works, because here we've seen that in the past. Yep, that's not upcoming. So we'll see if we see weakness or demand out of here. If we don't see demand in a buy out of this area and we fail below the 86s, then I would definitely be short this down to the 84s and potentially the 79s. But I'll be watching for my cues intraday to see if this trend holds and if we continue to go down. But I do like this area as a potential area to get long with your, stop being below this 86 area. But I'm watching this. I wouldn't just jump in, look for intraday cues to see if buyers are in control or if sellers are in control on this DLTR. Peak at McDonald's popped over this all-time high. Saw the push up here. We're pulling back to this. If we hold above this 221-ish area, if like the buyers step in and we hold these areas here, right around this 220, 221-ish area, then look for higher highs. Look for a breakout above this if this area holds. If this area fails to hold and we sell down, then next up, watch for the 216s, then potentially the 213s and lower. But if we hold, look for higher highs here. Just because, we're back testing this area that, previously was the all-time high. Goldman Sachs in this beautiful channel, making lows. Let me broaden this out some. So is there a potential we can buy up out of this area? Yep, there is. We're below the 197.10. If we regain that, look for buyers to potentially step in and give us a slight rise. Maybe we see the 207s, but I'll be watching for a slight rise, maybe into the 199s and into the 201s. If we regain the 197s, earnings is not too far. If we continue to remain below the 197s, then I'll be watching for if we go back here and we're weak, I'll watch for a dip into the 189s. If we get below this channel, then I'll be looking for the 177s to, be the next area of strong support. But don't doubt these areas here. Look at this 185. So these areas, look at these upper wicks here that rejected before. Remember that supply can become demand or resistance can become support. So we have to see if the buyers step in at this area and also at this area here. So I'll be watching for that. And this area is, the 186s, 185 area. We'll see. But if we regain the 197s, look for buyers to potentially give us a squeeze into the 207s. If we reject this area, then you can fade this and look for maybe a potential dip into the 189s. But remember, on any trade you take, it's good to start to take your profits as it begins to work for you and it begins to dip. Start to scale out. You don't have to hold everything all the way down from line to line. The market is very variable these days. And over to the SPY. So on the SPY, we are Let me zoom this in. Right around this 331. Let's see what happens. If we buy back up through the 332.72, I'll be watching for a back test of the 337 area, this candle structure here, potentially 339. If we begin to sell below this 331, then 328.70 is up next. Looks like a little bit of light support through there. But then if we dip, I'll be watching for the 320s next. So we'll see how this goes if the selling continues head into next week, or if the buyers just see this as a dip buying opportunity and push us back up. But a regain of the 332.70s, I would be looking for, and bullish candlestick formations, I would be looking for a rise potentially into the 337s. But I'll also be watching these lower wicks here on the 335s. So we'll see how that works on the SPY. If you like this video, please don't hesitate to tap the like button. And if you're interested in receiving more videos like these, please subscribe to our channel, Power of Pivots, on YouTube. And you can look forward to receiving more content like this, but also content from Elisa as she shares how she utilizes her Power of Pivots script and trading strategy to find great intraday setups, swing setups, and pre-market and post-market plays. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful week of trading, and please remain safe. For me, I need to put my son back to bed. So enjoy your week.